What's going on, everybody? Magnus here, back with another video for you guys. Today we are making a Viking-inspired war belt. It's called that because I thought it was a really cool name. It's not a historical item, but we could say it's historically inspired. You might see it on television shows like Vikings, which is also historically inspired, or Lord of the Rings, which I guess is also historically inspired a little bit, if you know what I'm talking about. Remember, as always, you can get the patterns and artwork for my projects on my website, link in the description down below. You can also get the patterns and artwork on the month they were released on my Patreon, link also in the down below box. Now, this pattern was released 3 months ago or 2 months ago, so it's not on my Patreon currently, but you missed out. That's all I gotta say. This video is sponsored by LONSDALE Leather. Be sure to check the link below for an amazing selection of tools, supplies, and of course, leather. The final pattern itself will be released with artwork on it. I hadn't gotten to the artwork when I printed this, but it is now included on my website. There are a couple methods to doing your patterns. You can cut them out perfectly, trace them out, and cut them out, or you can tape them down with a little bit of excess around the edge of the pattern. Depends on what you're doing. If you need to punch all these stitching holes, which I've decided not to do for this one, they're just on there just in case you guys want to be crazy and stitch it together, then you're probably going to want to tape the whole pattern down with a little bit of excess on the edge. I'll put a link right here to a video where I do it, and then you're going to more easily punch all those holes. For this project, I decided to use a combination of vegetable tan and latigo. So I've got this black latigo. It's about 12 ounces. And I'm going to use that as the base for my project. One of the things I did here was I figured that it needed to be a little bigger for my waist. So instead of remaking the pattern, I just extended it. So mark how much longer you want it, move it over, and then draw in the missing part. Now you're just extending the sides, you're not extending those extra plates on top. The plates will stay in the same place, but the straps will move with the extension. Now, this was all for naught because I made this too big in the end, and I had to reverse this whole little process. Didn't take me long to change it, but it was a little annoying. Got a fresh blade on my knife. I'm going to sharpen it anyways, makes it even sharper. Latigo cuts really nice, it's always pretty smooth. I'm using some saddle skirting for these top plates. It's about 13 ounces, so we got a lot of thickness there. If you're using this for SCA Rattan combat, make sure you check your local rulebook. But this, along with a little bit of padding, should be sufficient for kidney and short rib protection. I can't remember when LONSDALE Leather got these bevelers in, but they're from Odin, O-W-D-E-N, and I'm really enjoying them as well as some other tools from that line, so make sure you check them out. Because of the thickness of this leather, I'm using a size 5 beveler. Some would say I have an excessive amount of beveling in this video, but I really like watching beveling for some reason. I don't know why. Anyways, moving on. I'm using a 1/8 inch hole punch here. Obviously for you guys, it'll depend completely on what rivets you are using to assemble your project. And as usual, I am using 1/8 inch brass dome head peening rivets because I think they look great. They just take a lot more work. If you're not sure where to get those rivets, you can get them from rivetsonline.com. That's a free plug for those guys. Enjoy rivetsonline.com. You're welcome. I'm doing 1.5 inch straps with 1/2 inch keepers. I've got 3 different pieces of art for this project, all of which obviously come with this pattern. This is a fine example of why you should order from darkhorseworkshop.com and not Etsy, because when I update the pattern on darkhorseworkshop.com, it will automatically send that pattern to everybody that has bought it. Can't do that on Etsy. There are a ton of leather carving tools. Tons. And I use a very limited amount for what I do. All I need is tracing film, a knife and a blade, a stylus, a beveler, a backgrounder, and you're really good to go. Along with, you know, the other accoutrements like a granite slab, a hammer. I'm sure there's other little tools that I've forgotten, but there's not a lot of tools. That's the idea. There are even a ton of different blade sizes and styles, and I just use a filigree all the time, so. When you're using a swivel knife, one of the things you can do is turn your project as you turn your knife, so you're getting easier corners and it's not as hard on your wrist, so play with that sometime. So for the longest time, the only beveler I used was the middle size of these 3. Well, the one on the left. Now I've got the larger one, which does all my main lines, which is a recent addition actually. The very tiny one for the tight spaces, and the medium one for less tight spaces. The thing about the larger beveler is that you're going to get less tool marks when you use it. It's going to spread everything out a little nicer and make it smoother. So link in the description down below for these exact bevelers, and give them a whirl. Leather was getting a little dry, so I'm adding some more water. Make sure you don't rush into your project right away after wetting it. You don't want to be carving or tooling mushy leather, so let it sit a little bit. You want it cool to the touch, but not wet. I am just interrupting you guys really quickly to remind you that I sell t-shirts because I think my t-shirts are pretty cool. At least this one is badass. Take a look. Come on, that's amazing. I think that's a great t-shirt. So if you like t-shirts, have worn a t-shirt, know somebody who has also worn a t-shirt and may need a t-shirt, I've got t-shirts. I forgot about a couple of things and decided to make that a teaching lesson for you guys. There's no reason to not use an Angelus dye pen. It's way better for this kind of stuff, and they're pretty cheap. Lonsdale Leather has them. I might have a link off my Amazon storefront, I can't remember. But they are incredible. So I'm going to switch to it here. Everything becomes a lot easier. Now the other thing that I didn't do was wet the leather first. Wetting the leather will give your dye something to mix with and make your coat a lot more even. So play around with that, and I'm going to show you guys another piece of this project that I did where I wet the leather first and then painted with the dyes, and we're going to get onto that right now. Now, obviously, this is going to look different when it dries, and it still won't be perfect, but it'll be better than if you don't wet it at all. Beeswax is by far the easiest thing to come by when doing your edges. Works just fine. You can do water. You can do a little bit of saddle soap maybe. You can use toconol. I like toconol the best, but beeswax is probably the easiest. It's super easy to put on and easy to burnish and easy to get. And I did beeswax forever. And if I'm doing stuff for film, depending on the project, I will still do beeswax because it works just fine and it's really quick. Toconol can be a little messy and a little bit of a pain in the butt. Now you can also obviously use a machine burnisher. I want to show you guys all the options. Hand burnishers are just fine. Machine are great. I'm going to use this black toconol on the edge of the latigo piece. And as usual, toconol does its thing, and the edge is glassy smooth. Super nice. One of those transcendent moments for me was when I figured out how to get my leather carving to pop properly by using a resist, and that is acrylic resin. Now, I use a spray gun, which is also a huge moment for me. I highly recommend it if you can get a spray gun, it's great. All you need to do is put a resist on your leather, apply your antique, wipe the antique away because the resist is protecting it. The antique goes all into the cracks and crevices of your project, and then you put another finish on top of it. Somehow that's, once again, way too much antique. I don't know why. This is getting a little ridiculous. I think the other ones are better, but this first one is a bit of a mess.
Then, after applying your antique, use a whole roll of paper towel to wipe away the excess and buff it up.
Still need to make these keepers, stitch them inside out, invert them, you're good to go. Now we have a ton of brass rivets to peen. The one thing about peening rivets is you're just listening for the sound. There's a specific sound that it will make when you hit it correctly, and a specific sound it's going to make when you don't. So once you just listen to your hammer strokes, your riveting will become a lot better. These peening rivets don't cinch down over the stem of the rivet, so you either have to be super on point in your hammering like I am here, making sure you don't miss because the washer will pop off, or you can use some masking tape and tape all the washers down on the back, which I do in a bit here, which is really handy. So feel free to take that lovely idea and use it in your future projects. The belt looks awesome, a super straightforward pattern. The carving, the layered leather, and the rivets all coming together to make it mwah. I love it. Anyways, hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. It really helps the channel out. People don't believe me, but it does. Hit it right now. You see, it would have already been done. Make sure you subscribe for future videos and hit that notification button so you don't miss any of my content. And until next time, keep on being creative in whatever it is you do.